Modern life is full of distraction. It pulls our attention away from something simple. We are here for a limited time. That fact creates a kind of background anxiety. The Stoic philosopher Seneca made an observation. He said it's not that we have a short time to live, it's that we waste a great deal of it. So this is about an ancient answer to that anxiety. A practice called Memento Mori, and it's not a dark obsession. It's a tool for turning existential fear into focused, purposeful living. By the end, you'll have a framework to turn the awareness of your own mortality into a source of clarity, daily motivation. We'll explore the core Stoic principles behind it, the historical roots, and practical ways to apply it to your modern life. How can remembering the end teach us to begin? Memento Mori. People think it's about a dark obsession. But that's not the point at all. It wasn't meant to be morbid. For the Roman Stoics, it was a mental exercise, a discipline, a tool to sharpen the mind, to clarify what you care about. The words translate to remember you must die, but the Stoic meaning was really remember you must live. The practice was to pull you out of the daily fog, to put you just for a moment at the very end of your story, to look back from there. What would actually matter then? A minor argument, it just fades. A shallow distraction loses its power. What's left? The core of a life, relationships, your character, the work that means something. Marcus Aurelius kept a journal. His meditations, he wrote to himself, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, what you say, what you think. See, the instruction isn't to brood. It's to let that awareness guide your actions. That's the shift. Remembering mortality isn't the end goal. It's a lens, a way to see your current choices. The ancient philosophers built this into their days. It was a quiet calibration, a check, a way to not waste time, because time is this precious thing, and it's non-renewable. Modern culture treats our finite nature like a taboo. We fill the days with noise to avoid the quiet question. We chase tomorrows. We assume we'll get to what matters later. The Stoic practice dismantles that. It asks a simple question. If you embraced your limited time not in some abstract way, but as a vivid reality for today, what would you stop doing? What trivial worry would you finally drop? And then, what courageous thing or kind thing or necessary thing would you actually begin? The Stoics in Rome and Greece, they had this daily practice of remembering death. It wasn't just some morbid habit. It was a core part of their philosophy, a discipline for managing desire. They had a name for it, Premeditatio Malorum. A premeditation of hardships. The point was to rehearse potential losses in your mind. Not to become pessimistic, but to take away their power to surprise you. To see them coming, and by seeing them, to free yourself from the anxiety of not knowing. The biggest unknown is our own end, so they practiced facing that. Calmly in thought, Seneca wrote about this. He advised a friend to live each day as if it were complete on its own, as if it closed the book. He said the person who has prepared for their final day has learned how to live. Then there was Epictetus. He was a former slave who became a teacher. He framed it as the ultimate exercise in accepting what's outside our control. He taught his students to make a sharp distinction between what is up to us, our judgments, our actions, our character, and what is not, our bodies, our reputations, the length of our lives. All of that falls into the second category. To worry over the inevitable is to waste the one thing we truly own, our inner freedom, our capacity to choose our response right now. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor, he kept returning to this in his private writings. He'd remind himself that even a long life is just a dot in time, that soon we'll all be forgotten, and this wasn't a cause for despair, it was a reason for focus. If fame fades and the body returns to nature, what lasts? Only the quality of your actions in the present moment. There's a famous story. It might be more legend than fact, but it captures the spirit. They say that when a Roman general had his triumphal parade through the streets, a slave would ride behind him in the chariot. The slave's only job was to whisper into the general's ear, "Respice post te, hominum te memento, look behind you, remember you are a man." Some versions say the slave held a skull. The message was the same. This glory, this celebration, this moment of supreme power, it's fleeting. You are mortal. The practice was a direct antidote to arrogance, to the inflation of ego that comes with success. It grounded the general in reality, reminding him his station was temporary. That true worth was found in how he wielded that power, with humility and with justice. So the Stoic foundation is clear. Memento Mori was a tool for mental clarity, for emotional resilience, for ethical alignment. It cut through illusion. It forced a confrontation with what is real and what is lasting. We fear death. The Stoics asked why. Their answer was surprising. It's rarely about the event itself. It's almost always about the stories we tell ourselves. They broke it down into 3 layers. The first is a fear of pain, of suffering. The second is a fear of the unknown, what comes after, if anything. And the third, maybe the most powerful, is a fear of lost potential. The unfinished business, the dreams left unfulfilled, relationships unresolved, that haunting thought of a life cut short before its meaning was realized. Stoicism addresses each layer with reason. It starts by observing nature. Seneca wrote that death is a law of nature, not a punishment. Everything that has a beginning has an end. The leaf falls from the tree, the river flows into the sea. Our lives are part of that same cycle. To rage against it is to rage against the turning of the planets. It's not evil, it's simply what is. That perspective, that acceptance of natural law, begins to drain the first fear of its power. It reframes the event from a monstrous injustice into a universal transition. Then there's the fear of the unknown. The Stoics approached this with a kind of radical neutrality. Since we cannot know with certainty what follows our final moment, if anything, to spend our living days in anxiety over it is to suffer the speculation twice. Marcus Aurelius would remind himself, if there is an afterlife, it will simply be a change of state, and if there is not, then there is no you to experience any deprivation. In either case, worry now is a pointless tax on the present. The focus must return to what we can know and influence, the quality of our character and actions today. But the third fear, the fear of lost potential, is the one that Memento Mori directly transforms. Think of a modern parallel, a major project deadline. The date itself can create a paralyzing anxiety. But what if, instead of fixating on the finality of that date, you focused entirely on the work to be done today? The deadline stops being a threat and becomes a structuring principle. It clarifies priorities. It tells you what to say no to. The fear of failing to finish morphs into the energy to make today's effort count. That's the alchemy. Death, seen as the ultimate deadline, ceases to be a source of dread and becomes the very reason to engage fully with your current chapter. Here's a practical way to start. Take a moment and write down your specific fears about mortality. Be honest. Is it the idea of pain? Is it leaving loved ones behind? Is it that you haven't accomplished what you hoped? Just the act of writing them down objectifies them. It pulls them out of the shadowy realm of vague anxiety and puts them on the page where you can look at them with reason. You'll often find that what you're truly afraid of isn't the end, but the possibility of not having lived well before it. And that is a fear you can do something about, starting right now. Thinking about death has this strange effect. It clears out the noise in your head. That's the shift. You move from feeling dread into a kind of clarity. The Stoics had an exercise for this, the view from above. You pull your perspective way back until you see your city as just a dot, your country as a shape, the whole planet as this small sphere. From there, your individual life, with all its daily drama, is seen in its actual scale. Remembering you'll die is the ultimate version of that. It pulls you to the end of your timeline and lets you look back. And from there, what seems large, not the rude email, not the slow line, not the minor slight, those things just vanish. What stays in focus are the foundations: your integrity, the love you gave and got, the contributions that felt meaningful. Marcus Aurelius put it perfectly. He wrote, "Soon you will have forgotten all things, and soon all things will have forgotten you." It sounds bleak at first. But read it as a Stoic. He's not lamenting. He's prescribing a remedy. If both you and everyone who might judge you will be gone, then why spend your fleeting hours worrying about their opinions? Why bend your character for applause that will turn to silence? His point is a fierce focus on what's virtuous and true now. That awareness of universal forgetting isn't a reason for nihilism. It's permission to stop performing for an audience that won't exist, and to start living by your own deepest principles. To make it practical, picture yourself stuck in terrible traffic. You're going to be late, your pulse rises, your grip tightens on the wheel, your mind races with frustration. Now apply the lens. Imagine it's the last day of your life. From that vantage, does this traffic jam hold any weight? Does your lateness to that meeting carry the same significance? It shrinks to irrelevance. What might matter from that final perspective is how you treated the person in the car with you, or the patience you cultivated in that moment. The traffic didn't change, but your relationship to it transformed. The minor crisis is exposed, a temporary friction unworthy of your inner peace. So here's a challenge. Identify one common worry that occupies your mental space. Anxiety about a work review, irritation with a neighbor, stress over an event you can't control. Hold that worry in your mind and then gently apply the Memento Mori lens. Ask yourself, if today were my last, would this concern even register? Would it make the list of things I truly care about in my final hours? For nearly all our daily irritations, the answer is a quiet, liberating no. That cognitive shift is the practice. It doesn't solve the traffic, but it solves the suffering the traffic causes. And in that space, clarity emerges, showing you what's actually worth your limited attention. The taste of morning coffee, the sound of a laugh you love, they become vivid when you see them as finite. That's the effect of remembering time is limited. It clears away the trivial, and it illuminates the ordinary, turns it into something else. The Stoics had a practice alongside Memento Mori. They called it negative visualization. They would mentally rehearse losing what they cherished, not to dwell in sadness, but to break the illusion of permanence. To wake up to the fact that this person, this health, this moment of peace, it isn't guaranteed. And in that wakefulness, a raw gratitude is born. Seneca wrote that we are poor guardians of our time. We treat it as an infinite resource. We squander days as if the supply never ends. He observed we are thrifty with money, careful with property, but we are reckless with the one thing we can never get back. Time, he said, is the one loan that can never be repaid. When you internalize that, your perception shifts. The mundane is no longer mundane. The afternoon sun on your desk, the quiet before the house wakes, an easy conversation with a friend. These aren't just background details. They are the substance of a life. They are the very things you will one day look back on and miss most deeply. So why wait until that day to appreciate them? The practice is simple. Choose one routine moment today, your first sip of water, the feeling of your feet on the floor, the sight of a tree outside your window. Pause for just 5 seconds, and in that pause, hold two thoughts together. First, acknowledge the moment's simple beauty or comfort. Then, gently acknowledge that this exact moment, with this exact feeling, will never come again. It's a unique gift, arriving once and then passing forever into memory. That dual awareness of its value and its fleeting nature, that's the alchemy. It turns habit into ceremony. Another reflection is to mentally say a gentle goodbye to a mundane pleasure. As you finish that cup of coffee, think, I may never taste this exact blend again. As you hug someone goodbye, hold in your mind that this embrace here and now is a singular event. This isn't about cultivating sadness, it's about cultivating presence. It's about letting the potential for loss teach you how to fully receive what is already here. So today, when you encounter something simple and good, let the thought of its impermanence deepen your appreciation, not your fear. Let it anchor you firmly and gratefully in the now. Memento Mori is what counters that deeper kind of procrastination. We put off the things that matter most. We tell ourselves there will be a better time, more money, less risk. We push difficult conversations, creative work, big changes into a future we call someday. This isn't about avoiding chores, it's a postponement of your own potential. Remembering your time is limited breaks the illusion of endless tomorrows. It doesn't replace it with panic, it replaces it with a calm clarity. You start to see the cost of waiting in real time. This isn't a fear-based haste. That kind of urgency is frantic, it scatters, it burns out fast. It's like someone running from a fire. Stoic urgency is different. It's like an architect laying a cornerstone. It's deliberate, it's driven by a clear vision of what you're building and the sober knowledge that the light will fade. It compels action, but action that aligns with your deepest values. Epictetus was direct about this. He said, don't postpone living well, don't delay being a good person. He argued that waiting for the right conditions is a trap. The right condition is now, with whatever you have, wherever you are. There's a common story you might recognize. Someone spends years in a career that pays well but feels hollow. They talk about changing paths, pursuing a passion, but the security is comfortable. The risk seems too great. Then a health scare arrives, not catastrophic but a real warning. And in that moment, the abstract idea of limited time becomes viscerally real. The calculus changes overnight. The fear of staying in the unfulfilling job suddenly outweighs the fear of leaving it. That person often makes a shift, not in a reckless panic, but with a newfound focus. They align their daily actions with a core value they had been sidelining for years. Meaning or creativity or service. The scare didn't create new values, it just removed the fog that was hiding them. Memento Mori aims to be that clarifying moment without the crisis. So think of one important action you've been quietly putting off, mending a relationship strained by silence, starting that project you've only dreamed about. Making a significant change to your health or habits. Hold that intention, apply the lens. If you knew your time was genuinely short, would this move to the top of your list? Would you find a way to begin today with whatever small step you can manage? The answer points directly to its true importance. The practice doesn't shout that the sky is falling. It whispers a simple question, if not now, then when? And in that quiet space you find not anxiety, but the permission to begin, the reason to begin. The Stoics had a word for purpose, telos. It's your chief aim, your ultimate objective, and mortality. It doesn't just remind us time is limited, it defines the timeline. The actual timeline for achieving that aim. For the Stoics, a true purpose wasn't found in a job title, or a bank account, or public acclaim. Those are external outcomes. Largely outside your control, real purpose was an internal alignment, living in accordance with virtue and nature. The four cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, temperance, they were the compass. Your telos was to navigate each day by that compass, regardless of where the winds blew you. Marcus Aurelius captured this. He wrote, "Let every action, every word, every thought be as one who might depart this life at any moment." But he didn't stop there. There's a second half, he continued, and depart in harmony with your own guiding reason. So you see the connection. The awareness of mortality sharpens the focus. But the content of the action, its quality, that's determined by virtue, by acting with reason, with fairness, with courage. His instruction isn't to live frantically. It's to live integrally, to ensure that if this were your final act, it would be one you could stand by. Now contrast that with how we often define purpose today. We might say our purpose is to become a best-selling author, or to reach a financial milestone, or to gain recognition in our field. There's nothing wrong with these goals. But from a Stoic view, they are preferred indifference. They are not the purpose itself, they are potential outcomes of living with purpose. If you tie your sense of meaning entirely to an external result, you hand over your peace of mind to fortune. The book might not sell, the market might shift. The recognition might never come. A Stoic purpose, though, remains intact through all of that. Your purpose becomes to write with integrity, whether anyone reads it or not. To conduct business with fairness, regardless of the profit. To contribute your skill with excellence without needing the applause. The external goal gives direction, but the internal virtue gives the journey its worth. Here's a practical way to feel the difference. Think of two people working on the same project. The first is driven purely by the desire for a promotion. For the status it brings, every setback is a personal catastrophe. Every competitor is a threat. Their day is a roller coaster, anxiety and elation, tied completely to outcomes they can't fully control. The second approaches the same work with a different telos. Their aim is to be diligent, to collaborate with fairness, to solve problems with creativity and resilience. The promotion would be nice, but it's not the source of their daily satisfaction. That comes from knowing they acted with competence and character. When a setback hits, it's a problem to be solved, not an identity crisis. The first person's purpose is fragile, built on sand. The second's is resilient, built on the rock of their own choices. So how do you start defining this for yourself? It begins with a shift from a to-do list to a to-be list. Instead of drafting tasks for the day, try drafting a simple virtue statement, a one-sentence intention that guides your character, not just your calendar. For example, today, my purpose is to meet challenges with patience and to listen with genuine curiosity. Or, my aim today is to act with courage in one difficult conversation and to offer help where I see a need. This statement becomes your telos for the next 24 hours. It is completely within your control. You can fulfill it regardless of what happens externally. At the end of the day, you don't measure success by what you crossed off a list. You measure it by how well you lived up to your own stated virtue. This practice, repeated daily, slowly rewires your sense of purpose. It anchors it in something death cannot take from you, the quality of your character in the time you were given. Philosophy is useless without practice. The goal isn't to build a shrine to mortality. It's to weave a single thread into your day, a sobering thread, and when you pull it, everything else comes into sharper alignment. Start small, start simple. One method is a morning meditation, not a long session, just a minute or two of quiet before the noise rushes in. You sit. You offer a single, silent acknowledgement. I am here. This day is a gift. I will not have it again. Let that settle. Then, with that perspective held lightly, you decide on one action. One thing that would make this day meaningful, no matter what happens. That's your cornerstone. Another approach is a symbolic object. The Stoics used physical reminders. A coin in a pocket, a smooth stone on a desk. It's not a grim totem. It's a tactile anchor for your intention. When your hand brushes against it in your pocket, or your eye catches it on the shelf, it asks a quiet question. Is what I'm doing right now worthy of my limited time? That momentary pause is the entire practice. It creates a space between stimulus and reaction. That's where choice lives. Seneca wrote about this, a daily examination. He described ending each day with a review. He would ask himself, what bad habit did I cure today? What fault did I resist? How am I better? And he measured his progress not in possessions gained, but in anxieties released, virtues strengthened. A memento mori reflection fits right into that evening ritual. You might ask, if today had been my last, would I be content with how I spent it? Not in a spirit of self-judgment, but of clear-eyed learning. For a more modern integration, consider your environment. A small note on the bathroom mirror. It reads, not someday, but today. A phone wallpaper with a simple symbol, an hourglass, a wilting flower, a quote in fine print. These aren't meant to shock or depress. They're designed to redirect your gaze from the trivial to the essential, dozens of times a day without effort. The key is to make the reminder gentle, personal, frequent but not overwhelming. So look at the methods: the morning minute, the symbolic object, the evening review. The environmental cue: choose just one, the one that feels most natural, or maybe the one that feels most necessary for your current rhythm. Commit to trying it in its simplest form for the next 7 days. Don't make it complicated: a pebble in your coat pocket, a single sentence in a journal before bed. Observe what happens. Does a moment of frustration soften? Does a choice about how to spend an evening become clearer? Does a conversation feel more present? The effect is often quiet but profound. It's the sound of the background noise fading just a little, so you can finally hear the melody of your own life. Remembering you'll die draws a line, a bright line. On one side, everything that happens to you; on the other, how you choose to meet it. Your lifespan, the circumstances, how others react, that's not really up to you. That's chance, biology, the world. But your attitude toward that fact, the character you build with the days you have, that's yours. That's your territory. This is the Stoic split: what's up to us and what isn't, and mortality teaches it. Epictetus put it plainly. He started his handbook with it. Some things are up to us, he wrote, some things are not. Our opinions, our impulses, what we desire, what we avoid, what's our own doing, that's up to us. Our bodies, possessions, reputations, what's not our own doing, that's not up to us. Memento Mori forces that into the light. You can't control the ending of your story, but you have absolute say over the sentences you write today. That shifts the energy. It moves from staring at an ending to shaping a middle. The fear of death often comes from misplaced concern. We pour energy into managing the unmanageable, the length of our days, and neglect what we actually rule, the quality of them. Worrying about a future illness, for example. That's suffering in advance over something you can't guarantee. It drains today, but committing to healthy habits today, choosing good food, taking a walk, resting, that's in your sphere. It's an action you can take right now, regardless of the future. One is anxiety, the other is agency, so make it tangible. Think of 3 things that cause you worry. A financial concern, a relationship tension, career anxiety. Now apply the filter. Ask, what part of this is truly, directly up to me? Often the core worry is attached to an outcome, a result you want but can't command. Separate the outcome from your actions. A financial goal, the market, client decisions, that's not up to you, but budgeting, developing a skill, sending a proposal, that is. The practice isn't to stop caring about the goal. It's to redirect your care into the sphere you can influence. Your effort is yours, the result is not. That's how remembering death becomes a tool for freedom. It keeps asking, in the face of this limit, what is mine to do? The answer isn't about adding more days to your life. It's about adding more life to your days by filling them with actions chosen from purpose, from a clear-eyed love for the present. When you internalize this split, the weight lifts. You stop trying to command the tide and learn to sail your own ship. Stoics aren't unfeeling, they're prepared. There's a practice of turning the mind toward hardship. A training ground for resilience. It's called Premeditatio Malorum, a premeditation of hardships. The goal isn't to live in dread, it's to inoculate the mind against the shock of reality. You face difficult possibilities in the safety of your own thoughts. You strip them of their power to paralyze you when they arrive. You build an inner muscle memory for composure. Seneca championed this. He advised his friend Lucilius to spend time each day rehearsing poverty, exile, illness, even death. He wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. By mentally walking through these scenarios, you discover a truth. The event itself is often bearable. It's the frantic, terrified anticipation that breaks us. What is quite unlooked for is more crushing, he said. Unexpectedness adds to the weight of a disaster. The person who has prepared their mind in advance has already carried the load once. When the real moment comes, they are not carrying it for the first time. Think of it like a fire drill. The alarm sounds and people don't panic. They move calmly to the exits because they've rehearsed the steps. The building isn't on fire, but the mind and body know the procedure. Premeditatio is a fire drill for life's inevitable emergencies. It conditions your response. So when a real loss strikes, your first reaction isn't blind terror. It's calmer, more familiar. I have contemplated this. I know how to begin. Here's a practical way. Choose a manageable future challenge, a difficult conversation you need to have, or the possibility of a professional setback. Find a quiet moment, close your eyes. Don't just worry about it, walk through it step by step in your mind. Imagine the conversation unfolding. What's the worst thing the other person could say? How would you feel? What would a grounded response sound like? Imagine the setback. What would you do first? Who would you turn to? What inner resources would you draw upon? This isn't pessimism, it's strategic preparation. You are mapping the emotional terrain before you have to cross it in the dark, and in doing so, you accomplish two things. You reduce the element of surprise, which is a major source of suffering, and you often gain a deeper appreciation for your current stability. By mentally visiting a place of lack, you return to the present with a sharper sense of its gifts. So consider this gentle reflection. Think of a potential future loss, something that causes a flicker of anxiety when it crosses your mind. It could be related to health, a relationship, security. Now, instead of pushing the thought away, invite it in for a brief, calm conversation. Ask yourself, if this happened, what strengths do I already possess that would help me navigate it? Is it patience, a capacity for adaptation, a network of support, a history of having overcome difficulty before? Identify those inner pillars. This exercise doesn't summon the event. It summons your confidence in your own resilience, and in that space, the shadow of fear grows a little smaller. Your awareness of your own capability grows a little brighter. A social media like, that small hit of validation, it fades almost immediately. Memento Mori pulls the camera way back to a scale where those things vanish. That's its power to cut through vanity. The Stoics placed all value in the inner citadel. Your character, your reason, your virtue. Everything else was an indifferent. Praise, blame, possessions, status. They could be preferred or dispreferred, but they held no moral weight. They couldn't make you better or worse. Remembering your mortality is the ultimate test for what's truly an indifferent. From the vantage point of your final day, will you care about your number of followers or a job title that impressed strangers? The answer is a quiet no. Marcus Aurelius wrestled with this. He wrote near the end of his life that soon you'll have forgotten the world, and soon the world will have forgotten you. He reflected on the tombs of emperors, monuments to power and glory, now just crumbling stone, their stories half remembered. He wasn't being cynical. It was a mental exercise, a reminder to his own ego that the applause, the titles, the monuments, they're echoes that die out. What endures, if anything does, is the quality of the rule. The justice, the temperance, the courage, the inner work. There's a story from ancient Rome. After a major military victory, a general was granted a triumphal parade. He'd ride through the streets in a golden chariot, the crowds cheering. It was the peak of worldly honor, and yet, riding behind him in that chariot was a slave. The slave's sole duty was to lean forward and whisper into the general's ear, over the roar of the crowd, "Memento Mori, remember you must die." Some accounts say the slave held a skull. The message was a direct antidote to the intoxication of success, a grounding wire. It whispered, "This glory is an illusion. This celebration is fleeting. You are still a mortal man. Your true worth is not in this parade, but in how you wield the power you now hold, with humility, with justice, for the benefit of the people, not just your own pride." We have our own modern parades, the carefully curated online image, the pursuit of a certain lifestyle as a signal, the anxiety over social standing. Memento Mori asks us to appoint our own inner slave to whisper in our ear during these moments. When you feel that pang of envy or that hunger for external validation, let the whisper come. Is this what I want to spend my irreplaceable time thinking about? From the perspective of my final moments, will this hold any meaning? Here's a practical experiment. For one full day, delete one social media app from your phone. Not deactivate your account, just remove the easy access. Notice what happens. In the moments you would normally reach for that scroll, waiting in line, sitting on a bus, what thoughts arise instead? Do you feel a low-grade anxiety, a fear of missing out? Or does a space open up? Perhaps you think about a real conversation you could have. Maybe you notice the sky outside your window. You might even feel a slight boredom, which is often the ground for a more substantive idea to emerge. The goal isn't to declare social media evil. It's to create a deliberate pause, to interrupt the automatic chase for superficial validation and see what your mind, freed for a day from that particular whisper, chooses to dwell on. You might discover that the things you think about when no one is watching are the very things that compose a life of substance. The most effective focus tool isn't an app. It's a reminder that our time is limited, and that awareness, it works as a filter. It cuts through all the noise, all the demands, and it asks one question. Is this worth my attention? When it's not, the distraction just loses its pull. This isn't about managing time. It's about managing value. You start to spend your conscious hours, your real resource, with intention. Seneca saw this. He was frustrated by it. He wrote that people are careful with their property, but when it comes to time, they waste it. They're wasteful with the one thing you should be stingy with. We budget money, but we hemorrhage days. Memento Mori fixes that. It puts a quiet alarm in your mind, one that keeps asking, is this how you want to spend your life? You can apply a test, a deathbed test. Look at your to-do list, your calendar, how you scroll through your phone. For each thing, ask, if this were my last day, would this matter? The answers split everything in two. On one side, things that align, things that build or connect or heal. A hard conversation you need to have, really listening to someone you love. Work that uses your skill to solve a real problem. Even rest if it's deliberate. Rest that lets you restore yourself. On the other side, things that are misaligned. Refreshing a feed for no reason, losing an hour to a petty argument, a meeting that could have been an email, a meeting you attend just out of obligation. The test doesn't say you have to cut out all trivial things. It just shows you the cost. It shows you what you're trading your life for. Try an audit. Take a paper and draw a line down the middle. Label one side aligned, the other misaligned. Then think about yesterday. From morning to night, write down what you actually did. Be honest, where did your focus go? Put each thing in the column that fits. The goal isn't to judge the day, it's to see its shape, to get clarity. You're mapping your attention. You might see how much of your mental space is taken by things that give nothing back. This makes it concrete. It shows you where the filter should work. Then it becomes a calibration, a moment-to-moment thing. Before you start a task or pick up your phone, you pause, you ask, is this aligned? The answer doesn't shout. It just nudges you quietly toward what matters. Over time, your default setting changes. You're not fighting distractions with willpower anymore. You just lose interest in them. They become static, background noise you don't tune into. Your energy, which was scattered, starts to gather. It coalesces around a few things, things that give your days weight. Direction, you become, like Seneca said, stingy with your time, not in a miserly way, in a devoted way, investing it only in what gives a return in purpose. If you knew your time with someone was ending, what argument would still matter? Probably none. But we let these small things sit for months, for years. Memento Mori makes that clear. It says the time for fixing things isn't endless. The chance for a kind word or an apology or just reconnecting, that's a window that's closing. This connects to the Stoic idea of justice, which they saw as a social duty. It's acting with fairness, with kindness, helping the community. Holding a grudge means choosing to carry a weight. It poisons your own peace, and the whole time the clock is ticking on your chance to put it down. Marcus Aurelius had to deal with difficult people every day. In his court, he wrote reminders to himself. He said when people act unjustly, it's from ignorance. They think they're right. Being angry at them is as useless as being angry at a stone for falling. He also wrote that the person you're upset with today will soon be gone, and you'll be gone too. All their slights, all your grievances will be dust. This isn't about excusing bad behavior. It's about freeing yourself from the story a resentment builds, that inner narrative. It asks you to see the other person as a fellow mortal. Flawed and finite, just like you, that shared mortality can be a bridge, not a barrier. There's a practice you can try, writing a letter of forgiveness. You don't send it, it's for you. Take a story of a resentment you've carried, write it all down, then, from the view of your own mortality, write a release. Acknowledge the hurt, and then choose consciously to set down the burden of the anger. You might write, I see now our time is too short for me to carry this. The letter is a ritual, a closure. It moves the energy from a past injury into a present choice for peace. So this week, let that awareness of limited time move you. From thought to action, choose one person, someone you appreciate but haven't told, or someone where a quiet distance has grown. Reach out. It doesn't need to be grand. A simple message saying you were thinking of them, or a shared memory, something that brings a smile, or an honest, gentle word to clear the air. That outreach is the philosophy in action. It turns the abstract reminder of death into a concrete act of life, a stitch of kindness mending the fabric of your relationships, which, in the end, are the measure of a life. Stoicism says to really love life, you have to be at peace with leaving it. That's the paradox. If you stop insisting a good moment lasts forever, you can finally step into it. The fear of losing it, the worry it will fade, is what keeps you from feeling it in the first place. It's like trying to hold a butterfly by clenching your fist. You crush what you wanted to keep. The practice is to open your hand, let the butterfly land knowing it will fly away, and in that open acceptance you get to see its wings. The suffering comes from the clutch, not the change. We want our health to be permanent. We want our relationships to stay happy. We want our successes locked in place. But life is a river, not a statue. Trying to freeze it is fighting its nature, and that fight is exhausting. It drains the joy from the present because you're too busy trying to secure the future. The shift is to release the demand for permanence, to see each moment as a guest. It arrives and then it departs. This doesn't make you care less. It lets you experience more deeply because you're no longer bracing for an ending that hasn't happened. There's an instruction from the Stoics about enjoying a feast. Savor every flavor, appreciate the company, lose yourself in the laughter, and all the while hold a gentle awareness in the back of your mind. This will end, the plates will be cleared, the guests will go home, the night will grow quiet. That awareness isn't meant to spoil it, it's what makes it precious. It's the frame around the painting. It tells you this is special. Don't sleepwalk through it. Think of a sunset. Its beauty is woven from its impermanence. If those orange and purple hues were frozen across the sky forever, they'd become the background. You'd stop seeing them. It's the fact that the light is changing by the second, that in minutes it will be gone, that pulls you to the window. That commands your full attention. The aim is to bring that sunset quality of attention to more of your life, to the ordinary moments that are also quietly slipping away. So a small practice for today: choose one simple pleasure, the warmth of your coffee cup in your hands, the sound of rain against the window, the weight of a pet curled beside you. As you experience it, add one layer of conscious thought. Acknowledge softly that this exact sensation is temporary. It's a unique visitor in the stream of your life. Notice how that acknowledgement changes your attention. Does it make the warmth feel more vivid? Does it make the sound of the rain more distinct? This isn't about sadness. It's about waking up to the gift while it's still here. In that space between grasping and letting go, joy finds its truest home. We're mortal, we can agree on that. But to feel it, that's different. That's the real line between understanding something and living inside it. The Stoics saw this. Philosophy wasn't a library to them. It was a gym, a training ground. Epictetus put it plainly: you don't learn carpentry by reading about hammers, you learn by building. You don't become virtuous by memorizing quotes. You become virtuous by practice, day after day. Memento Mori works the same way. Its power doesn't come from agreeing in your head, it comes from a shift. A shift in how you see things. It happens in the body, in the senses, in those quiet moments when your mind stops arguing and just knows. This awareness, it comes in unexpected ways. You might be watching your child sleep and it hits you. You won't always be here to protect them. It's not a morbid thought, it's a piercing clarity about how precious your role is right now. Or you're cleaning out a parent's home. You hold an old photograph, someone whose name you've forgotten. The feeling isn't just sadness. It's an encounter, a direct encounter with time passing, made tangible in objects, in dust. These moments, they bypass the intellect, they land with a weight. A weight that changes you. They turn mortality from a fact into a force that can reorder your priorities instantly. To cultivate this, you have to move beyond the page. You have to engage the world. One gentle practice is to spend time in places that speak of cycles. An old, well-kept cemetery. It can be surprisingly peaceful. It's not about focusing on loss. It's about observing the dates, the family names, the simple inscriptions. You see the span of lives, long and short. You see the love carved in stone. It becomes a landscape of remembrance. It softens the heart. It expands your sense of time. It connects you to a human story much larger than your own. Another is to watch nature's rhythms. Sit and watch a sunset, not as scenery, as an event. Notice how the colors deepen and fade, how the light is actively leaving. There's no panic in the sky. There's only a dignified conclusion. A beautiful end to the day. Or in spring, watch a tree you saw bare in winter, now covered in blossoms. Knowing those flowers will fall to make way for fruit, these are silent lessons in impermanence, in renewal, taught without a single word. A simpler practice is to use your own body as the reminder. Right now, pause, place a hand over your heart, feel the rhythm there. That beat is not a metaphor. It's mechanical, fragile, incredible. It's the process that sustains your awareness. Right now, it had a beginning. It will have an end. To focus on it is to connect with the living miracle of your existence, the temporary miracle. It grounds Memento Mori in the warm, rhythmic truth of your chest. So here's a prompt. Find 5 minutes of silence today. Sit comfortably, close your eyes, tune out the world. Tune into that single physical rhythm, your heartbeat or the feeling of your breath, entering and leaving. Don't try to change it, just observe it with each pulse. With each breath, hold the dual awareness. This is life, and this is fleeting. Let that knowledge settle into you, not as a thought, as a sensation. This is how theory becomes texture. How an idea you know becomes a truth you live by. We hide death away. We put it in hospitals, in funeral homes, but the Stoics did something different. They invited it to dinner. They talked about it plainly, as a fact, not a fear. Modern culture goes the other way. We use soft words. We hand the final care to professionals. We treat dying as a technical problem, a medical event, something that happens behind closed doors. This distance doesn't stop the anxiety. It just pushes it into the shadows, where it becomes a formless dread. The Stoic practice is a counter to that. It brings the conversation back into the light, into the living room, into an ordinary day. It says if you hide from the end, you misunderstand the middle. Our avoidance creates a low-grade panic because we're trying to build a meaningful life on a foundation we won't look at. Seneca had an analogy for this. He said life is a journey. We're all travelers. Our bodies are just inns where we stay for a night. A wise traveler is always ready to leave. They keep their bags packed. They don't think the inn is their permanent home. They enjoy the comforts, the fire, the meal, the company, but they don't cling to them. They know the innkeeper could knock at any hour, and they have to be ready to move on. That mindset changes everything. You stop decorating the inn like you'll live there forever. You start focusing on the journey itself. Your character, your experiences, your connections with other travelers. That becomes the point. The inn is just where you rest. We see pieces of this coming back now in things like death cafes. These are informal gatherings. People meet, have tea and cake, and talk about mortality openly. The goal isn't to be morbid, it's to normalize it, to take the conversation out of clinical settings and bring it into community. Some films and art do this too. Not with horror, but with honest sadness. They look at legacy, memory, what makes a good ending. These are attempts to fix a cultural split, to stitch death back into the fabric of life where it belongs. So consider your own background for a moment. How did your family or culture talk about death? Was it in hushed tones or avoided completely? Was it framed by religion or by silence? How did that shape your own feelings? Is it fear, mystery, peace? There's no right answer. The exercise is just to see the narrative you inherited, because you can't choose a different relationship with something until you see the one you already have. Understanding that creates a space where you can decide, like that Stoic traveler, to keep your bags packed, to enjoy the warmth of the inn's fire fully, knowing your journey continues beyond it. The Stoic idea of Memento Mori leads to something else called Amor Fati, love of fate. It's often tied to Nietzsche, but it fits right in with Stoicism. It's the last step, not just accepting what happens or even your death, but actually embracing it, seeing it as necessary, even good for the whole story. The Stoics saw a rational universe, a cosmos. Everything that happens, from a small annoyance to your last breath, is a thread woven into a larger tapestry. To love your fate is to trust that weaver. Marcus Aurelius had a line about this. He wrote that a fire makes flame and brightness out of whatever you throw into it. The fire doesn't pick and choose. It doesn't say this log is good, this trash is bad. It takes whatever fuel it gets and turns it all into light and heat. The fire's purpose is to burn, and our purpose is to live with virtue. So every event, everything that happens to us is fuel for that. It's material for building our character, and that includes our death. Memento Mori is about remembering the end. Amor Fati is about loving the whole arc because it has an end. That limit is what gives the story its shape, its urgency. A song needs a final note, a book needs a last chapter. Otherwise, there's no resolution, no defined space to create meaning. To love your fate is to love the whole composition, the final note included. So moving from acceptance to embrace, it starts with the past. Look at a regret, a failure, some hardship you went through. In the moment it was painful, something you wished hadn't happened, but from where you stand now, can you see its role? Did that career setback push you somewhere more authentic? Did that heartbreak teach you about your own resilience or clarify what you actually value? The hardship didn't feel good, but the strength you gained from it, the wisdom, is now part of you. That thread, even a dark one, contributed to the pattern. Amor Fati is deciding to look at that dark thread and say, you belong here too. You are part of my story. I wouldn't be who I am without you. This isn't seeking out suffering. It's stopping the fight against what's already happened, integrating it, letting it become a source of depth instead of a wound. So here's a quiet challenge. Think of one past event you view with regret. It doesn't have to be huge, a missed chance, a mistake, a time of struggle. Then gently try to reframe it. Ask, what did this make possible that wouldn't have happened otherwise? Did it build patience? Did it force a necessary change? Did it close one door so you could see another? Look for the subtle ways it added to your current strength, your perspective, your empathy. This isn't pretending it was pleasant. It's recognizing its necessary role in your life's narrative. When you can do that, even a little, you're practicing Amor Fati, learning to love the story precisely because it's yours, the whole thing. The Stoics did care about legacy. But not the kind you might think, not the legacy carved in stone. The modern idea, it's often about leaving a mark that lasts, a building with your name. A company you started, a book that stays in print. Those are external things. To a Stoic, they're indifference, not bad, but not the core of a good life. A Stoic legacy is different. It's the imprint of your character on the world around you, and it's made in the present. It's the sum of your kindness, your fairness, your courage as other people experience it. This legacy isn't built for the future. It's built right now in how you treat the cashier, how you listen to a friend who's struggling, how you meet a difficult moment with integrity. It lives in memory and in action. Marcus Aurelius thought about this. He wrote that we live on in the memory of those we've touched, but then he added the crucial part, and soon even that fades. His point wasn't that our actions don't matter. It was that their meaning is concentrated in the present, because even memory is temporary. So the only thing of absolute value is the quality of the act itself. Done with virtue, right now, the legacy isn't in being remembered. It's in having been just or kind or wise when it counted. That impact ripples out. Often in ways you never see. It changes the feeling in a room. It shapes a child's sense of safety. It gives a colleague the courage to speak. Think about two different pursuits. One is spent obsessively building a public monument to yourself, curating an image, chasing accolades, accumulating symbols of status that requires constant validation from outside. It ties your worth to things you can't control, other people's opinions, the whims of culture, the durability of stone. The other pursuit is the quiet work of being a mentor. Showing up, offering guidance without expectation, believing in someone when they doubt themselves, or the work of being a reliably compassionate friend. Someone who listens without judgment, who supports without keeping score. That legacy has no plaque. It doesn't make headlines, but it alters the course of a life. It plants seeds of confidence or healing or resilience that grow long after you're gone. From a Stoic view, which one is the richer legacy, the more durable one? The answer pulls us away from posterity and toward presence. So here's a question. What imprint of your character do you leave on people in your daily interactions? Not in some grand final assessment, but in the small exchanges of an ordinary Tuesday. When you're impatient in line, what do you leave behind? A slight tension. A feeling of rush when you offer genuine thanks or patiently explain something, or choose to forgive a minor annoyance. What do you leave? A moment of grace. A sense of being seen. Those are the micro-legacies. They're the quiet curriculum of a life. They teach others through your example what it means to be human. That's the Stoic shift from worrying about how you'll be remembered to focusing on how you are relating. Your legacy becomes a verb, not a noun. It's something you do actively with the time you have. Looking back, you can see time that feels wasted. Yesterday, last week, last year. Hours spent scrolling, procrastinating, drifting without a clear purpose. That awareness, the one that was supposed to help, starts to feel like a judge. It tallies up every moment you didn't use perfectly. That feeling is common. And the Stoics had a direct answer for it. They would draw a line through your experience. On one side, everything that's already happened, the past. It's completely outside your control. It's fixed. To spend your present moment feeling guilty about it is to hand over your only point of power to a ghost. The past isn't your territory anymore. Your territory is the narrow strip of the present, this moment and the next one. Memento Mori isn't a tool for auditing your life with disappointment. It's a compass for navigating from here. Its purpose is guidance, not self-flagellation. Seneca spoke to this. He wrote that it's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Life is long enough for great achievements if it's all well invested, but then he gives the remedy. We must not hesitate, and we must begin at once. His focus is on the beginning you can make now. Regret over misspent time is only useful if it fuels a more deliberate present. If it doesn't, it's just another form of waste. A waste of your current attention on something you can't change. So there's a practical exercise for that anxious energy. Take a journal or a piece of paper. At the top, write down a period of time you consider wasted. Maybe it was a season of low motivation, a year in a draining job, or just this past weekend lost to distraction. Describe it briefly without drama. Then, directly below, write a sentence of release. You might write, "That time is gone. It is outside my control. I forgive my past self for not knowing then what I know now." This isn't about excusing inaction. It's about closing the ledger on that chapter so you're free to write the next one. Now, turn the page. Set a timer for 5 minutes. Your task is to make a small, intentional plan for just the next hour. Not the whole day, not the week, the next 60 minutes. What one action could you take in that single hour that would feel aligned? It could be taking a purposeful walk without your phone, making a nutritious meal, writing the first paragraph of a letter you've been meaning to send, reading 10 pages of a book that matters. The scale is deliberately small. You're practicing the shift from regret over the unchangeable past to agency in the immediate present. Finally, a reflective prompt. Think of one thing you routinely label as wasted time. Maybe it's your commute or waiting in lines or a particular form of entertainment. Now challenge that label. Look for one valuable thing it provides, even if it's not obvious. Does that commute offer a moment of solitude? Does that waiting time force a pause in a frantic schedule? Does that entertainment provide genuine rest that recharges you? The goal is to see that not every moment must be productive in a conventional sense to be worthy. Sometimes what looks like waste is actually necessary space. Space for integration, for rest, for the subconscious mind to work. By finding the value, you reclaim the time from the grip of guilt and return it to the flow of your life. Stoicism wasn't something you were supposed to do alone. The original philosophers, they met in the Stoa, this public walkway in Athens, and they talked. They worked through the hardest questions together. The thinking was, wisdom gets shaped by dialogue, by being challenged, by reflecting with other people. Confronting our own mortality, that's a heavy thing, and if you only do it by yourself, it can get twisted. It can just feel like a weight, but in a group, that weight gets distributed. And the understanding, it grows. Epictetus had a school. What we read from him now, those aren't prepared lectures. They were conversations. He'd ask something. A student would answer, and he'd talk them toward a clearer view. The difficult subjects, grief or suffering, what makes a life good, they were all out in the open there. In that shared room, and that process, that communal questioning, it had a point. It made the individual stronger. When you hear someone else give voice to a fear you have, it loses some power. When you watch another person struggle with a concept and then find their footing, it shows you a way. The community works like a mirror and like a support. It gives your thoughts back to you, but sharper, and it holds you to the standards you say you believe in. Today, that means finding places for that kind of shared reflection. Maybe a local group that meets in a library, or a serious online forum where people post real questions about their week, or even just one person, a friend you can talk to about this stuff without any pretense. Just saying out loud what Memento Mori means to you, explaining how it changed your view on some annoyance, or when it made you feel more grateful, that forces you to get clear. And in return, you get another angle, a perspective you might have missed. So here's a small move in that direction. Take one thing from all this that stuck with you. Maybe it's using mortality to sort out daily noise, or the idea that your legacy is the character you show right now. Share that one thought with someone. Not as a lesson, as an opening. You could say, I was thinking about something today, about how we spend our time, and I'd be curious what you think. Their reaction, their own take on it, that will deepen the idea. For both of you, it turns a private exercise into something alive, a shared search, which is exactly how these ideas lasted in the first place. For an artist or a writer, the blank page can feel less like an infinite void. It's a finite space, it has edges, you only have so many of them. That's a kind of memento mori. It sets a deadline. It says this painting, this song, it exists in time. And you do too. That awareness can cut through a certain paralysis. The need for endless revision, the fear it's not good enough, the worry about how it will be received. All of that assumes you have unlimited tomorrows. But if your time is limited, then the goal shifts. It's not about perfect execution. It becomes about honest expression. Sharing what feels urgent now. The Stoics had a metaphor for this. They compared the wise person to an archer. The archer's job is to take careful aim, to draw the bow with proper form, to release the arrow skillfully. That is within the archer's control. But once the arrow leaves the bow, it's subject to the wind, to a moving target, to chance. Whether it hits the bullseye is not up to the archer. The Stoic advice was to focus all your energy on the aiming, on doing your work with excellence, and then to let go of the outcome. For a creator, that's profound. Your control lies in the practice, the discipline, the honesty you pour into the work. The public reception, the sales, the reviews, that's the wind. It's not yours to command. Memento Mori sharpens your aim. It asks, if this were your final project, what would you most need to say? What truth have you been holding back? That question strips away the secondary concerns. It points you to the core. History is filled with creators who worked with this awareness. Composers who wrote with a feverish pace, knowing their health was fading. Painters who developed new styles in their final years, unburdened by the need to please critics. They weren't creating out of a fear of death. They were creating because of it. The limit concentrated their vision. In modern creative work, we see a similar principle. The idea of shipping often, a mindset that values consistent output, learning in public over hiding away until something is flawless. This embraces the finite nature of attention. It understands that a good work shared today often has more impact than a perfect work that never leaves the hard drive. So here's a prompt if you create anything. What project have you been circling, drafting and redrafting in your mind but never finishing? What book idea or album or plan sits in a folder waiting for a safer someday? Now apply the lens. If you had 1 year left to do your creative work, what would you finish and release, not in a frantic rush but with deliberate focus? What is the essential heart of that project? What is the one thing it needs to communicate? Start there, write that sentence, sketch that central image. Build the simplest version that carries that core. The deadline of a life doesn't ask for a sprawling epic. It asks for a clear, heartfelt note, and from that note, everything else can grow. Memento Mori asks this question about your career. Is this a ladder you even want to be on when you die? The daily grind, the next promotion, the next title, it all feels urgent. But from the end of your life, that urgency can sound like noise. It's just a hollow sound. The practice moves you away from careerism, the climb for its own sake. It moves you toward contribution. It asks you to measure your work not by the height you reach, but by the ground you tend, the soil you're tending. Seneca was critical of busyness. He saw people constantly in motion, their days packed, and yet they'd arrive at old age having never lived a life of their own. They were just passing time. Not using it, he wrote that being busy is not the same as living well. A life of purpose is one where your actions connect. They form a coherent whole. Your energy goes to things that fit your nature, things that benefit the common good. For the Stoics, this was virtue, justice and courage. Justice in your work means seeing it as a contribution. Are you solving a real problem, making things more fair or more efficient or more beautiful? And courage means having the integrity to take a stand. To speak up when something's wrong, even if it risks your place on that ladder. So you can see two paths. One is fueled by external validation. You chase the promotion, the corner office, the applause. Every setback feels like a failure. Every competitor is a threat. Your worth is tied to a title that can be taken away. That's a recipe for chronic anxiety. For burnout that feels like a hollow victory. Now picture the other orientation. Your core motivation is to solve a meaningful problem, to build a product that helps people, to create a team where people feel respected, to mentor someone just to ease their path. The promotion might still come, but it's a byproduct, not the source. Your daily fulfillment comes from the work itself, from contributing. One path is a treadmill, the other is a garden. So here's a prompt. Look at your role, your daily tasks, the culture you're in. Ask yourself, does this work mainly serve a need for validation, for status, for approval? Or does it provide avenues for virtuous action? Does it let you practice justice through contribution? Does it require the courage of integrity? The answer isn't about condemning your job. It's a diagnosis. You might find that within the same structure, you can pivot. You can emphasize mentoring over politics. You can redefine success as the quality of your workmanship, not the frequency of praise. The ladder itself may not change, but your reason for climbing it transforms, and with that, the weight of every step changes too. Remembering you only have so much time to shape a young person, it changes your focus. It's not about pressure, not a countdown. It's a quiet shift. The little arguments, the distractions, they fade back. What comes forward is just being there. You're only their guide for a short part of the journey, and that turns ordinary moments into something else, into connection, into showing them the character you hope they'll carry. Musonius Rufus, the Stoic teacher, he talked a lot about education, not just of the mind but of character. He said parents and teachers had a duty to pass on wisdom and virtue, to shape young people for a good life, not just success. And that duty, it wasn't about control. It was cultivation. You provide the soil and the light. You can't force the plant to grow a certain way. Your influence is the environment you create, one of patience, reason, consistent values. Knowing your time is limited, it makes you more deliberate about what's in that environment. It asks you to filter out the noise, the minor irritations, and to pour your attention into what builds trust. Think of a common evening. You're tired. A child wants to tell you a long, meandering story about their day. Your mind is on the dishes, an email. The easy path is the half-listening ear, the distracted nod. But if you hold, even for a second, the thought that these years are finite, that this child wanting to connect with you in this specific way is a temporary gift, then your focus changes. It softens and sharpens at the same time. You put the phone down, you turn toward them, you listen, and that act in itself is the lesson. It teaches them they matter. It models presence, which is a form of love. That practice translates into mentorship too. A manager who knows their time with a team member is limited. They might skip the micromanagement. Focus on empowerment. They might share a story of a past failure, what it taught them, instead of just dictating a procedure. The lesson becomes about resilience and learning. Not just compliance, the Stoic aim is to equip the other person with their own inner compass, so they can navigate well, even when you're not walking beside them. So if you guide anyone, a child, a student, a colleague, ask yourself, what's one core value you most want to impart? Integrity, curiosity, compassion. And then how can you model it today without a lecture? Maybe it's admitting when you don't know an answer and looking it up together. It might be showing kindness to a stranger in front of them. Or handling your own frustration with a deep breath instead of a sharp word. Your living example, more than any instruction, becomes the wisdom they remember. Your legacy in their life is written in these quiet, consistent actions, made more intentional by knowing your chapter in their story has an end. Aging and illness bring mortality close. It becomes personal. Stoicism gives you a framework for that. The body's decline, it's not a betrayal. It's part of the natural order. Leaves change color, they fall. This is like that. The practice is to separate the experience of the body from the sovereignty of the mind. Your knees might ache, your vision might soften. But your capacity for reason, for gratitude, for kindness, that's still yours. You can still cultivate that. The goal isn't to deny the hardship, it's to meet it with a kind of composure. That comes from seeing it as a phase of life, not an interruption. Seneca wrote about this in his later years in letters to his friend Lucilius. He described his own ailments. Poor health, the slowing of old age, but his focus never stayed on the symptoms. It always turned to the opportunity they presented. He saw illness as a chance to practice patience. To study your own mind, to refine what truly matters when external vigor fades. He wrote that the wise person lives as long as they should, not as long as they can. A life's value is in its quality and virtue, not its duration. When the body becomes a burden, he argued, the mind can still be a garden. That shifts the perspective. Instead of raging against the fading of physical capability, you start to ask a different question. What can I attend to now that I couldn't when I was constantly in motion? Maybe it's a deeper attention to relationships, to conversation, to the play of light in a room. Memento Mori becomes especially poignant here. It's no longer a philosophical exercise about some distant future. It's a daily companion. It reminds you that even in limitation, there's a richness available, the richness of a fully inhabited present. Practically, this means adapting your tools. If a long walk is no longer possible, then seated meditation becomes paramount, deep listening. If handwriting is difficult, journaling can become a mental exercise. A quiet review of the day's thoughts before sleep. The focus turns inward to cultivating inner peace, to observing the flow of thoughts and emotions without being swept away. This is where Stoic resilience shines, not in the absence of struggle, but in the dignified manner of moving through it. Think of an elder you genuinely admire. It's likely not for their physical prowess, not for an unlined face. You admire their patience, their stories, their hard-won peace, that twinkle of humor in the face of life's absurdities. You respect their inner qualities, their steadiness, their grace. These are the virtues that aging can actually burnish. The body becomes the anvil, character is the metal being shaped. So here's a gentle reflection. Bring to mind someone older whose presence you value. What inner quality do you most respect in them? Is it their resilience? Their wisdom, their capacity for joy in small things? Now consider this. That quality is not dependent on a healthy body. It is a possession of the mind and spirit. This is the Stoic promise. While the outer world changes and declines, the inner citadel built on virtue and awareness can remain intact. It can grow stronger, more luminous as the noise of the world slowly falls away. Our digital selves might last forever, but we have to log off. We build these profiles, these archives of smiles and sunsets. And it creates an illusion. It whispers that our story can be preserved perfectly online, that it's permanent. This digital immortality, it stands in direct conflict with Memento Mori. The practice asks us to embrace our limits. The feed offers a fantasy of endless extension. You can spend hours polishing a persona for strangers, and the real person, the one who needs rest and quiet, gets neglected. The Stoic principle here is about seeing what's real. Your online presence is a representation. It's a shadow. Your lived experience in this body with these people beside you, that's the substance. The curated life is an indifferent. It can be used well or poorly, but mistaking it for the primary thing, that's a distraction from the time you actually have. We can use Memento Mori as a tool for digital minimalism, not to reject technology, but to reclaim our attention. It asks a simple question. When you're scrolling, are you living, or are you watching a highlight reel of supposed living? That pause is the practice. It creates a space between the impulse to check and the action. In that space, you remember your time is limited, and you get to choose. One practical method is a digital reminder. Set a gentle notification on your phone. It could pop up once a day with a simple phrase, "Look up," or "This moment is real." Its job isn't to shame you, it's to redirect your gaze from the screen to the space around you, to the texture of the world, to the person across the table. It's a modern version of the slave whispering to the general, but now the general is you, and the chariot is the endless stream of content. Another method is a periodic review. Every few months, look at your online accounts, not to post but to prune. Ask from the perspective of your finite life, does this platform add value or extract it? Does it connect me or does it just fragment my focus? This isn't about a grand purge, it's a conscious curation. You are the steward of your attention. You're auditing where it goes. Here's a reflective prompt. Calculate roughly how many hours you spend in a week on passive scrolling. Be honest, it's not about guilt, it's about data. Take that number. Now, imagine redirecting just half of that time. What could it serve? Could it be an hour longer in conversation with someone you love? Could it be time spent learning a skill? Could it simply be quiet time to think, or to walk without a podcast in your ears? The comparison is illuminating. It shows the opportunity cost in the currency of your actual life. The goal is to see the screen not as a window to forever, but as a tool for the now. To be used with intention and then set aside. The Stoics saw the cosmos as rational and humans as part of it. Your death is just a note in a grand symphony. That's the final expansion of the view. It goes beyond the individual, beyond even the social world, to see your whole existence as woven into nature itself. They had a word for this deep connection, Sympatheia. It means everything is linked in one living system. Your birth, your life, your death, these aren't isolated events. They're part of a constant flow, matter and spirit moving from one form to another. In this view, dying isn't an exit, it's a return, a reintegration. The elements that make you up, the water, the earth, the air there on loan, they were here before you, and they'll be here after, taking new shapes in an endless dance. Marcus Aurelius came back to this image often in his private writings. He'd look at the stars and remind himself his own brief life was happening under the same laws that govern those distant suns. He wrote about the earth receiving our bodies and the air and fire rising from them. He saw himself as a tiny fragment of the universe, but a fragment that was conscious of the whole. This wasn't to make him feel small. It was to give him a sense of belonging, to root him in something eternal, even as his personal story ended. He reflected that soon he'd be ashes or bones or dust. But even that dust, he noted, would be scattered and transformed, to become part of a plant or an animal or the soil for new life. In this cycle, there's no waste. Only change, that cosmic perspective, shifts the feeling of mortality. The anxiety of an ending softens into the peace of a return. You start to see your life not as a solitary line in sand, but as a ripple in a vast ocean. The ripple rises, it travels, and then it merges back into the greater body of water. Its individual form disappears, but its energy continues, affecting the whole in subtle ways. You can connect this to a quiet environmental awareness. When you walk through a forest, you're walking among the transformed remains of countless lives. The fallen log returning to soil, the leaf decomposing to feed the tree. There's no cemetery in the woods because the whole forest is both a living community and a kind of memorial. Your own physical body, in time, will join that same elegant economy of nature. This Stoic view asks you to see that not as a loss, but as the completion of a natural contract. You borrowed the materials, you built a conscious life with them, and then you give them back so the process can continue. To feel this, not just understand it, needs a direct experience. So here's a simple practice. Find a quiet place in nature, a park, a garden, a trail. Sit for a while and just observe. Watch the way a leaf detaches from a branch and spirals down to the ground. Notice the moss on a stone slowly breaking it down. See the new shoots pushing up through last season's decay. Don't analyze, just watch the cycles. Growth, decay, renewal, all happening at once, without sentiment, without pause. As you watch, hold this single thought. You are not a visitor to this scene. You are of it. The same laws that guide the leaf and shape the stone are operating within you right now. Your awareness is a unique flowering of this same cosmic process. When your time comes to return your elements, it will be as natural and as necessary as that leaf making its final journey to the forest floor. In that recognition, something settles. A deep, wordless belonging arises. The fear of being erased is replaced by the quiet certainty of being reabsorbed into the story that never ends. Any powerful tool can be misused. The point of Memento Mori is to serve life, not to dread it. It's a lens for clarity, not a prescription for despair. It sharpens your focus on what matters. It doesn't blur the world into meaninglessness. A common misstep is letting the awareness of death tip over into nihilism. The thought that nothing lasts can be twisted into the conclusion that nothing matters. But that's a misunderstanding. The Stoic position is that external outcomes are indifferent, but our internal choices are not. The fact that your actions won't echo forever doesn't make them meaningless. It makes them pure. Their value is intrinsic in the moment of their doing. Your kindness matters because it is kind, not because it will be recorded for eternity. The practice is meant to liberate you from the need for eternal significance, so you can find profound significance in the temporary and the human. Another misstep is morbid obsession. Fixating on the end rather than using it as a reference point. This turns the tool into a weight. You might find yourself constantly checking for symptoms or withdrawing from experiences out of a heightened sense of fragility. And this is the opposite of Stoic courage. Seneca warned against this. He said we should anticipate, not dread, the things that frighten us. There's a world of difference. Anticipation is a calm mental rehearsal that prepares the mind. Dread is an emotional storm that paralyzes it. Memento Mori is an act of anticipation. It's looking at the map before the journey, so you're not lost when you reach the unfamiliar terrain. It is not spending the entire journey staring at the map in fear of getting lost. The core corrective is in the Stoic judgment of death itself. The Stoics classified it as an indifferent. It is neither good nor bad in itself. It's a natural event like the changing of seasons. What gives it emotional power is our judgment of it. We label it a catastrophe, an injustice, a terrifying unknown. The practice asks us to re-examine that label, to see it as a neutral fact of existence. This doesn't remove the natural sadness of parting. It removes the layer of panic and rebellion that compounds the sadness. Marcus Aurelius framed it as a duty of nature. Just as it is the season for olives to ripen and fall, so too is it the season for a life to complete its cycle. Resisting this is like shouting at the rain. Consider two different reactions. One person dwells on mortality and becomes withdrawn. They see the futility in everything, so they stop investing. They avoid new relationships because they'll end in loss. They abandon projects because they won't last. Their world shrinks into a cautious, isolated space. They have mistaken the reminder of an ending for a command to stop beginning. Now picture another. They contemplate the same finite timeline and feel a quiet urgency. Not anxiety, but a focused energy. They reach out to mend a friendship because the time to do so is now. They start the modest creative project they've delayed because expressing it feels more important than its perfection. They listen more intently to their family, savoring the ordinary Tuesday dinner as the irreplaceable event it is. Their world expands with engagement because they know their ticket to the show is for a limited engagement. So here is a simple check. When you bring the thought of mortality to mind, what is the dominant feeling that follows? Does it make you want to pull back, to hide, to conserve? Or does it make you want to lean in, to connect, to contribute? The first reaction points toward a misapplication. The tool is creating fear. The second points toward its proper use. The tool is creating purpose. If you feel the pull to withdraw, gently correct the course. Remind yourself of the Stoic distinction. The event is indifferent. Your judgment of it is yours to shape. Then take one small, engaged action. Send a message. Take a walk and truly see the sky. Do a kind thing anonymously. Redirect the energy from fearing the end into honoring the present. That is how you keep the practice in service to a life fully lived. Memento Mori isn't something you do by itself. It's a thread that runs through the whole day, the way the Stoics lived. They didn't just think about these ideas, they built them into a rhythm, a structure for the day from morning to night. When you remember you have limited time, and you combine that with the other Stoic practices, it changes them. That awareness sharpens everything else you do, and those other practices, they give Memento Mori its actual shape. It stops being just a thought, it becomes how you live. You could think of a Stoic day in 3 parts. There's the morning preparation, the day itself, and the evening reflection. Memento Mori touches each one. So the morning starts not with your phone, but with a quiet intention. Before the day really begins, you take a few minutes. You might just sit, breathe. Anchor yourself, and then you bring in that simple fact. Your time is limited. This isn't to scare you, it's to focus you. From that place, you ask a question like Marcus Aurelius did. What is my work today? Not your job, your human work, your character. Knowing this day is a gift you won't get back, you set a simple intention. Today, I'll be patient with interruptions. Or I'll listen more. I'll do one thing thoroughly. That intention becomes your guide. Then the day happens. This is where the dichotomy of control comes in, seen through the lens of your limited time. It becomes your filter. When something difficult comes up, a frustrating email, a change of plans, a hard conversation, you have a habit. First, you pause. You remember your time is precious. Is this worth my peace? Then you make the split. What here is up to me, what isn't? Your reaction, your effort, your integrity, that's yours. The outcome, the other person's mood, the traffic, that's not. This constant calibration keeps you from spending your finite energy on battles you can't win. It turns stress into a choice. Epictetus wrote a handbook for this, the Enchiridion. The title means handbook. It wasn't theory, it was drills. He taught his students to have these principles ready, like tools. The first line sets it up. Some things are up to us, some are not. The whole book is just working out that one liberating idea, and Memento Mori is the urgency behind it. It's the reason you'd even pick up the tools to begin with. Then evening comes. The last part is review. The Stoics called this an examination. You look back on the day. Not to beat yourself up, to learn. You can ask 3 gentle questions, remembering your mortality. First, where did I use my time and attention well? Second, where did I get caught up in things outside my control? Third, knowing my time is limited, what's one thing I'd do differently tomorrow? This review isn't for guilt. It's for calibration. It closes the loop. It turns experience into wisdom. So here's a simple framework, a skeleton you can use in the morning, 5 minutes. Sit quietly, breathe, acknowledge this day is a gift you won't get again. Set one intentional virtue to guide you. Write it down during the day. Use a trigger. A phone notification that says, "Is this up to me?" or a small object in your pocket. Let it remind you to pause and apply the filter. In the evening, 5 more minutes. Review the day against your morning intention. Note one thing you did well. Note one learning. Forgive what needs forgiving, then let the day go. The challenge is to make it yours. Design a 10-minute morning ritual that includes Memento Mori. It doesn't have to be complex. It could be making your coffee mindfully, thinking of all the hands that brought it to you, and your own temporary place in that chain. It could be in the shower, using the water as a reminder of time flowing. It could be writing one sentence in a journal. I have today. I will not waste it. The form doesn't matter. The consistency does. This daily stitching of awareness into ordinary life, that's how philosophy stops being an idea and becomes the texture of your life. The final gift of this practice is a freedom from the fear of death. It's not about recklessness, it's the opposite. It's a kind of calm that comes when you stop fighting a fact of nature. When you bring the reality of your own ending into your view, something shifts. That background hum of anxiety goes quiet, and the energy you were spending on a low-grade dread of the inevitable becomes available. For living, Seneca put it clearly. He wrote that the man who has learned how to die has unlearned how to be a slave. A slave to what? To other people's opinions, for one. If you're not ruled by the fear of your own end, you're far less likely to be ruled by the fear of embarrassment or financial loss or any temporary setback. Those things lose their power to intimidate. They become manageable events, not threats to your existence. You become unenslaved from the tyranny of what might happen and free to engage with what is. This state looks like a deep calm in the face of uncertainty. It's the parent who can be present with their child, not because they've forgotten mortality, but because they've made peace with it. Their love isn't a frantic clutch, but a spacious embrace. It's the creator who shares their work boldly, not because they're sure it will succeed, but because the fear of failure no longer feels like a life or death verdict. It's the professional who can take a principled stand, because the potential cost to their career is measured against a life already lived with integrity, not against an infinite future they feel they must protect. Now contrast that with a life still dominated by that primal fear. It's a life of hedging. Decisions come from a place of lack. Relationships are guarded for fear of future loss. Dreams get postponed, buried under someday, and when it's safe, there's a constant, subtle negotiation with an unseen deadline, an attempt to bargain for more time by avoiding risk. That person isn't free. They're managing an inventory of days, too afraid to spend any of them on what matters. The Stoic achievement is to move from that anxious management to what you could call sacred spending. You spend your days, your attention, your love, not because you have an endless supply, but precisely because you don't. And in that conscious spending, you find a richness that hoarding could never provide. So here's a prompt to make it tangible. Imagine for a moment that the background fear of your own mortality was significantly reduced. Not gone, but quieted to a whisper. How would one specific area of your life change? Would you have a different conversation you've been avoiding? Would you spend your Saturday differently, choosing connection over distraction? Would you approach a creative project with more play and less perfectionism? The answer to that question points to the shape of your own liberation. It shows you the door this practice holds the key to. Memento Mori, it's this ancient practice, and it's not about a morbid fixation. It's a tool, a lens. It brings the blur of daily life into focus. We started by confronting the anxiety of limited time. Not to be crushed by it, to be awakened by it. That awakening sparks a series of quiet changes. Your perspective shifts, minor irritations fall away. What's left is what's substantial. A new urgency emerges, not frantic, focused. It directs your energy toward contribution, not just careerism. Your relationships deepen. Because you understand the time for mending fences, for sharing laughter. It's not infinite. And ultimately, you find an inner freedom, a release from that low-grade dread that can dominate an unexamined life. That's the Stoic promise. By remembering the end, you're empowered to design the middle with intention. Marcus Aurelius had a final instruction for this practice. He wrote it in his private meditations: perform every action as if it were your last. Do it with sincerity, with dignity, with love, with a mind free from pretense. He saw no contradiction between holding that thought and living a full, engaged life. In fact, he saw it as the only way to live free of hypocrisy and regret. To act as if this moment matters because it does, not in some dramatic, final sense, but in the honest sense that this is the only moment you're ever guaranteed to act within. So carry this reminder forward, not as a weight on your shoulders, as a compass in your hand. Let it guide your choices toward what's meaningful, your attention toward what's beautiful, your character toward what's virtuous. The goal was never to think about death more often. It was to think about life more deeply, to live it more fully, to waste less of it.